The $1 million can actually be as low as $500,000 if you place that business in a targeted employment area, TEA. And the TEA is defined as a census tract that has unemployment at 150% the national average. So if the national average is 8% and you have a census tract where you're placing your business that has 12.1% unemployment, you could invest $500,000 instead of the $1 million and proceed down the path that the law outlined. Now I put an asterisk on the 2 years because actually the 2-year timeline becomes much longer than that because of delays and because of the process. But basically it says that at some point in the not-too-distant future, you have to go back to Homeland Security and you have to show that you have, number one, invested the money, and number two, created the jobs. Now in that first, in what I've talked about so far, that's codified. That's actually in the immigration law. But it became obvious quickly that it was very restrictive. And it was restrictive because it required that all of your money be available at the beginning of the deal in order to go forward. So if you had big deals that required tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, that was a barrier. It wasn't going to work that way. So in 1993, Congress, I'm not sure if it was Congress or the administration, the U.S. government created a pilot program. And the pilot program was a different iteration of EB-5. It said that you can create a business, a new business enterprise, but you can accumulate the investment dollars over time. You didn't need the investment dollars on day one. And it allowed for the counting of jobs in a much more advantageous way. In item number one, in this one here, the 10 jobs had to be 10 full-time jobs, provable by your 941 records and your employment records, etc., etc. Well, it takes a lot to employ 10 people full-time over time. In the modification, it changed. It allowed for the development of an econometrics formula that measured jobs in a direct, indirect, and induced way. Direct jobs being a full-time employee, an indirect job being jobs that are created by the presence of that business in the marketplace because of their contracts with subcontractors, providers, etc. And induced jobs, those jobs that are created in the marketplace because of the payrolls. You go to the movies, you go buy gas, you buy a car, whatever the expenditures are. And an economist can measure that in terms of a formula. And those formulas have become, Lauren Cohen, who talked about earlier, her company does a lot of those formula preparations. And they are becoming, they are difficult, they are tested, and they are being highly reviewed by Homeland Security analysts for their defensibility. And they become a hurdle that has to be overcome. Now, one of the things that is to not make this an immigration law lecture, because nobody needs to be lecturing on immigration law. What I want to do is present this in a way that the business person sitting in the room who thinks that this might be a way that they can expand their business and acquire capital would better understand it. I've been to a number of these lectures. I recently went to the Florida Chamber up in Tallahassee, and they had a panel of 3 people, and by the end of the panel I could have taken an immigration law test, but I didn't know as a businessman how I would get involved in the process. And the bottom line is, to get involved in the process, you have to be able to accept the proposition that, number one, you are going to expand your business or you're going to create a new business. And number two, you're going to seek capital from this source. Now, when this was first created, and over the years, people have viewed it as a faucet. You turn the faucet, the money flows. That's not the way it is. It's a very disciplined area of the law that requires a lot of work. And so the business owner needs to realize that in order to make their company eligible to be able to attract this kind of capital, you're going to have to invest some capital in the process to get yourself prepared for it. So many people come to this process, and in this side, in the first grouping, I hate that.
It's the side one on the circle.
No, I'm not trying to move it.
Oh,
I'm trying to get the point in. In the first side of this, the job creation becomes a problem, the accumulation of capital becomes a problem. That transaction is a transaction, that deal is a transactional deal between either a buyer and a seller of a business or an individual creating a business. In the regional center concept, you are no longer dealing in transactional law. You are dealing in securities laws, which is a major difference